The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Nebraska for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the time. I'd like to step away from the immediate discussion and talk about some broader perspectives. If we understand the very fundamental purpose of these markets to be to mitigate risk and to inform price discovery, we've traditionally had, and perhaps you can answer this if I'm not correct, 80% of the market, traditional hedgers, versus 20% speculators, or maybe 70-30. It's my understanding that some of those proportions are now inversed. And if you look at where we are today in terms of our own economic situation, you can trace the beginnings of this back to the run-up in commodity speculation and oil prices, which then began to create some problems in the economy, create layoffs, which then exposed the housing bubble due to liberalized credit, which had all the various manifestations after that of problematic, bizarre, and financial instruments on Wall Street. And here we sit after a couple of years of the Treasury Secretary coming to us and saying, you must do this and bail out all of these firms in order to prevent economic Armageddon. The point being is the very markets designed to mitigate risk, have they created risk?
I think in the case of the swaps market, or what's called over-the-counter derivatives, you are correct that they did help many entities mitigate risk, but they also concentrated risk, that the crisis was for many reasons, the housing bubble, as you talked about, and other reasons. But part of it was the derivatives marketplace, particularly this product called credit default swaps. I think it also helped concentrate risk. So rather than mitigating and spreading risk, it concentrated risk. So in the height of the crisis, the administration at that time felt it needed to come to Congress and, as you know, extend bailouts to these large financial entities, AIG and others. And we shouldn't put the American public at that risk. There should be a freedom to fail, that these firms can fail and not be so interconnected through their derivatives contracts with the rest of the financial entities.
I had a local Chamber of Commerce group come to see me a year or so back, including a number of small bankers. And I asked any of them if they had ever used or heard of a synthetic collateralized debt obligation. And they just stared at me with a blank stare.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
And I said, thank you for not knowing exactly what that means. Again, when you have institutions that are disconnected from an understanding of the underlying asset value and a machine out there that props up the bad information in terms of ratings, and insurers that are, again, not understanding that underlying asset value in those portfolios and raking in commissions and no check mechanisms on that. That was the manifestation of the full extent of the problem due to liberalized credit that was out there, but also a lack of mechanisms that prevented, as you say, the concentration of risk and oversight mechanisms that would have stopped this type of development. But let's go back to that earlier point. Do we have now a disproportionate number of hedgers versus speculators, and is that a related problem to these markets becoming investment markets versus markets designed to mitigate risk?
This is an age-old debate, the role of speculators and hedgers in markets. Our markets...
But it's traditionally, we're in a different period now where the proportion of speculators is much, much higher, if my understanding is correct, than traditional hedgers.
In some markets, that is certainly the case. Speculators and hedgers both have a role in markets. Agencies such as ours and the SEC work hard to protect against fraud and manipulation. Right. Congress has also asked our agency to use something called position limits to protect against the burdens of what's called excessive speculation, and we've done that over the decades in certain physical commodity markets.
Do you see any parallel between the run-up in commodity speculation at the moment and what happened in 2008?
Well, I think that the American public, which you're correct, is observing this run up and the costs that they see in the gas tank and so forth. They're very real. We've put out proposals on position limits to use the authority that this body, and in fact, probably this committee was the first committee that asked us to do that back in 2008, if I remember. Congressman Peterson would probably remind me, and Chairman Lucas. So we're looking forward to the public comment on that related to the energy markets. It will get a lot of comment. We got 8,200 comments on the proposal a year ago we put out.
Well, I look forward to hearing the results of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr.